Hello everyone, and thank you for tuning into our first ever digital E2E Visie session. My name is Eltjo, and this is Ryan Verves Bijkerk. And yes, if you guys are wondering, we are more than 1.5 meters apart, 100 kilometers to be exact. We're from GO-EUC, and in the next 45 minutes, we are going to tell you guys everything you ever wanted to know and more on the real user experience from a cloud workspace. Of course, we are both honoring E2E tradition, and we're both sipping a nice cold beer. Well, mine is actually really that cold, but hey, who cares?
Mine is.
Mine is, yeah. We did skip on the limoncello though, and I hope Alex doesn't mind that, but it was a little bit too early for me this morning. But besides beers, we're also very passionate about performance, and that actually is the whole reason why we are here today. But before we start, yeah, there we go. We're obligated to issue a small warning. We have a lot of data and information to present to you guys, and we only have 45 minutes. People always tell me that I talk way too fast, and in this case, it won't be any different. The good thing about the digital version of the E2E today is that once Alex has sent out recordings, you can play it back at 50% of the speed. So, all jokes aside, my name is Eltjo, and I am a workspace consultant in the Netherlands. You might have guessed that from my accent and my pronunciation, actually. I work as a workspace consultant for a company called ICT Partners, and in that capacity, I deal a lot with digital workspace environments with a main focus on VDI and Citrix. Furthermore, I am a Citrix CTP, and I recently joined the Team RGE community as a new member. And did you know that I am actually 1.5 years younger than Ryan?
Nice fact. So my name is Ryan Verves Bijkerk. I'm a technology evangelist at Warworks, where I work on the mission one, which is making the workspace intelligent using new technologies like micro apps, artificial intelligence, automation. Heavily involved in GO-EUC, also Citrix CTP, and active within the community. But let's first start with the agenda for today. So we got a lot of topics, and first we're gonna talk a little bit about the GO-EUC platform. We want to explain the benefits of the VDI optimization, especially in a cloud perspective. We're gonna talk about some scalability, and at the end we're gonna end off with the real user experience, the end user experience. But first start with the introduction about GO-EUC. So hopefully everybody already knows GO-EUC. It's a community effort focusing on performance topics, everything EUC related. But if you look at the this famous quote of Neil Armstrong, "Research is creating new knowledge," we really believe as the community in this quote. Doing these kinds of researches is getting new knowledge, which we can leverage in our day-to-day job, but also you can benefit from it for the community. And we embedded this in our mission as the platform. So our mission is to facilitate the individual with the research capabilities. And this means that we provide resources, so the hardware resources, but also the testing methodologies to allow you to validate new technologies. And by exploring these new technologies, the end goal is to inspire and serve the community with this new knowledge. A little bit of a background of GO-EUC. We started in September 2018, but in April this year, we made a very big transformation. We transformed towards a non-profit foundation, which really means that we're now fully independent and unbiased, and it is really managed by the community and for the community. So there's no vendors involved in terms of activities in there. And it's really managed also by us and other members. To be specific about it, we got currently 11 active members on the platform, which are already contributing towards the researches that we do. Now, a big important thing we have to mention in order to keep this all up and running, it takes a lot of money to all rent the hardware, and therefore we have 2 active sponsors to the platform. The first one is Logen, which is a software solution for benchmarking VDI solutions. And also the company where Eltjo is working, ICT Partners, which invested within GO-EUC. Everything we do, we share on our platform, and that's basically our website. So all the research is published in a blog post format. There's no registration required. It's really open for the community, and we try to make it also easy to consume and to be to the point. So after the presentation, during the break, you can go to the website and go through some content. And there is a lot of content on there. So our default testing methodologies currently are Logen in combination with Rex Analytics. Now Logen allows us to reproduce workloads, so user behavior on our platform to execute repetitively tasks. And this allows us to also compare solutions to it. Now we use this in combination with Rex Analytics in order to also get a perspective from an end user experience. I have to mention that I'm really using a hacky way of Rex Analytics where I'm only using a minor component, but I still want to give all the love and credits to Rex Analytics. Now in this case, we are testing cloud scenarios. And this is the current the configuration we have used for all the researches we're presenting today. So on the right side is representing as a customer side, which basically is my office. And we have an endpoint over there, which is connected through a dedicated capture card towards another device. And this allows us also to collect the end user perspective from the endpoint without affecting the performance. Once a remote session is established, it goes through our GO-EUC platform. In this case, it's hosted at the OVH data center. To be specific, it's located in Germany, where we have all the default components that we require at least to facilitate in VDI. So in this case, for this scenario, we leverage the cloud using Citrix Cloud, and by a site-to-site VPN, and we can connect between both environments using the hybrid scenario. So within the cloud, we use the VPN gateway in order to set up the site-to-site VPN, and the cloud connectors for Citrix Cloud are also located there. So at the end, all the workers are, in this scenario, all the scenarios located in the cloud. So to give a little bit of an insight in how we test, everything we do is fully automated, but automated to the max. So once we prepare the scenarios, we just hit the automation scripts, and then we just sit back and drink beers. But to give a little bit of an idea, our automation contains different cycles. We need to ensure that the environment is ready to go. So we prepare everything, we reboot all the components. In this case, we reboot the VMs where eventually the user will be simulated. And then we also start all the data captures and then execute the test. So everything we're going to present today are averages of multiple cycles. Now, in this case, we took not our default 10 cycles because of, we're cheapskates, we're Dutch. So Azure credits, it consumes a lot of money. So therefore, we decided to a little bit less cycles. But it takes a lot of time, at least, to complete one scenario. We collect a lot of data, and everything is published in averages. Now we use multiple data sources during the test. In this case, we can leverage the application data from Logen, but we also collect data from the VM itself using Perform. We also have the launcher data, which basically is an endpoint. And at the end, a very important component is the protocol data. We're leveraging remote display analyzer. And all these different data sources allows us to tell the story from a complete perspective and from different viewing points, which is really important when doing performance researches. So let's go to the first topic. And Eltjo, it's your topic.
Yep. Cool. Thank you very much, Ryan. As we said before, we got a very packed agenda, so let's dive right in. Ryan and I do a lot of VDI projects, and what we usually notice is that a lot of these projects, in actually almost all of these projects, the end user experience and the performance almost always go hand in hand. And to that end, I did a Twitter poll and a poll on the IGL community site that Simon just talked about a while back, and I asked you guys, the community, what you thought was the most important factor for a DAS or a VDI solution. And not really surprisingly, you guys chose the performance as the most important factor, the key factor. That doesn't mean that we don't have to take the other factors into consideration, factors like security or availability, especially with the whole working from home trend with the COVID-19 situation, all very, very important. But performance came out on top, and that's good because that is right up our alley. Where was I? Oh yeah, the performance. One of the most important things you can do to get more performance on your VDI is to optimize your VDI image. Back in the good old days, we all used to do that manually, hand by hand. Then we started, each of us, with our own PowerShell scripts, but nowadays it's much easier, and there are a lot of tools available that you can use to optimize your images for you. Such like the VMware OSHot tool or Citrix Cloud Optimizer. In the next couple of minutes, we are going to show you guys what benefits you can reap by optimizing your images. And for that, we came up with the following research. We took a standard Azure machine, in this case, a much used machine, a D4 V2 machine. It's a very standard machine, 8 vCPUs, let me check, 28 gigabytes of memory, and we used Windows 10 1909 multi-session on that. We also installed the VDA. In this case, it was 1912 LTSR version and Office 2016. We defined two scenarios. The first one is the one you see here in blue. This is our baseline scenario. It's the default scenario. And I wanted to say the next finish implementation, but I really hope that just like us, you guys automate your installation. So let's say it is the image that rolls from your CI/CD pipeline. And in orange, we got the second scenario to compare it with. And that's actually the same image, but afterwards we've updated it. No, not updated, we've optimized it with Citrix Optimizer. We used the 1909 template and we selected all the default optimizations, like the removal of built-in apps, optimization of scheduled tasks, services, and what have you. So if we look at the data, we can clearly see right from the get-go that optimization has a huge benefit. In this case, there is a huge positive effect on the CPU usage. And if we look at the other data, for instance, the storage data, we can see the same trend. Here again, the optimized image has a much lower storage footprint. Well, that is all nice and dandy, but what is the first thing that an end user will notice when they log into the VDI? Well, the time it takes to log them on, and that's also the first time they can really evaluate the performance of their VDI. So let's just make the login times as fast as possible, right? Well, optimizing the image does just that, and we can see an almost a little bit over 20% decrease in login performance. If we make this a little bit more interesting and take the data and extrapolate it to, let's say, 1,000 users. With this amount of users, we can clearly see that because of the increased performance and the reduced CPU load, we need a lot less VMs to host all these 1,000 users. We need less VMs. And the good thing is, because you all know that Azure, like AWS and the Google Cloud Platform, is a pay-per-use platform. So you pay what you use. This means that because we require less VMs, we can save on compute costs. Next slide. Yep, there we go. And in our particular frame of reference, don't laugh, Ryan. And in this particular frame of reference, we used a D4 V2 machine, our workload, and 1,000 users. We could have saved up to more than 4,000 euros a month on compute costs. bear in mind, this is just a compute cost. What we didn't take into account was, for instance, the storage costs and the cost for the network traffic, but a reduction of more than 4,000 euros a month on compute costs. Dutch cheapskates, we like that stuff. So, in summary, with this research, we wanted to show you guys the benefits of optimizing your VDI image. And I reckon we did a pretty good job on that. We showed that optimization is always the best practice, not only on on-prem workloads, but especially for the cloud workloads. Because cloud environments like you have Azure, AWS, and the Google Cloud Platform, for instance, they're all pay-per-use. And for these platforms, you can realize significant cost savings by optimizing the images and therefore reducing the amount of VMs you need to host your users. And then you can save money. In this case, it was 4,882 euros, and that's a lot. But optimizing isn't the only part of the equation. You should always also choose the right sized VM for your workloads. And by sheer coincidence, that's also the next topic on our agenda.
Oh, what a nice bridge. It's almost like that we prepared this entire presentation. So let's talk about cloud scalability. So my wife once told me, oh no, wait, that's a different story, sorry. When moving towards the cloud, size doesn't matter, right? We have infinite resources within the cloud, and we can just pick and spin it up. But it's interesting because in the last couple of months, with the whole entire COVID-19 situation, we have seen that even cloud is also limited. So that is, in this case, also interesting to see which VM we can leverage in order to host the sweet spot of user density. And in this case, also in a session like what Jim explained, it's important to have the scenarios with the scale up and scale out in mind. When you leveraging cloud, you can use the multi-session edition. You can host multiple users. But when you reach a certain point, actually it was a really surprise for me to see, the bump is quite quick. It's really hard to drain all the users from the environment. So you have to keep in mind with that. So in this case, we have selected 4 scenarios. So in this scenario, we decided to select the D series VMs and pick the different sizes. So in blue, we have the D2 V2, which is a 2 vCPU machine with 7 gigs of memory. And we have in orange, the D3 V2 with 4 CPUs and 14 gigs of memory. The D4 variant has 8 vCPUs with 28 gigs of memory. And then at last, represented in the yellow, we have the D5, which is really a beast, using 16 vCPUs and 56 gigs of memory. And as you also can see, the estimated cost per month is really rapidly increasing when you go bigger.
And that's the compute cost again, right, Ryan?
It's exactly, it's the estimated compute cost. So for this configuration, we have decided to basically pick the same configuration. So we use the 1909 Enterprise Edition and the multi-session one, using the 9012 LTSR VDA version, leveraging the Office 2016. And as a best practice, like we heard from Eltjo, and we optimized the image using the Citrix optimizer. So the interesting part here is looking at user density, and this is not really surprising. So when you have more resources, it makes sense when you can host at least more users on the environment. In this case, you see that the biggest one, the D5, can host the most amount of users. But as we have learned also from the session from Jim and Benny, it's really hard to train all the users from that particular machine. Now let's look at a scenario when we're hosting 1,000 users. So how many machines do you actually need to host in your cloud environment? So in this case, when selecting, for example, the T2 variant, you need 200 machines in order to host 1,000 users. Which again, it makes sense. This is not really rocket science. And when you go larger, of course, you need less amount of machines. But again, it's really hard to train all the users from a particular machine. So when we calculate this through the estimated compute cost, we do see here a difference. And it was for us at least interesting to see that even the D2, D3, and D4 were all quite in a similar range. But the D5 is what was not in our particular reference and not really efficient if you look at the cost. So in terms of cloud scalability, it is really important to at least understand the workload you're going to move towards the cloud, and also therefore select the correct machine size. And as we have learned from Jim and Benny, it's really important to at least select a machine which has the proper balance between scaling out and scaling up. So in our particular framework, so with our workload that we have created, it is the D4 is the sweet spot in terms of cost, but we think also in terms of scalability. I think we still have to rephrase that because the insight of Jim was an eye-opener for me. So at the end, it's really important at least to understand the cost and also leverage the auto-scaling technology by shutting down the unused resources. But we have to take that into account with the new insights of Jim in also in this research. But let's go to the interesting part, the end user experience. Eltjo.
Awesome stuff, Ryan. Yeah, we are going to switch gears a little bit and move on to, at least in my eyes, the most important and most exciting topic in this of today, the real user experience. Over the last couple of years, there's been a steady increase in GPU usage in VDI environments, and nowadays it is very common to add a GPU to a VDI workload. In the past, there was actually only one big player in the market, that was NVIDIA with their grid solutions. But Intel and AMD also really stepped up their game with their Arvis Pro and their Fire Pro solutions. And nowadays, with AMD Fire Pro also coming available in Azure, it's much more easier to select something. If we look at the application landscape, we can see a big shift. Where back in the good old days, GPUs were actually only used for very specific use cases like CapCam, like Autodesk, for instance. But nowadays, all modern applications can really benefit from the added GPU. If you look at Office applications, all the major browsers, hell, even Windows itself can benefit by adding a GPU. Let's look at a typical VDI project. Well, after a couple of months of really hard work, blood, sweat, and tears, the VDI project released their newly built VDI to the end users. Whoop, whoop. We practiced this. Whoop, whoop. But the end users are frustrated. And why? Because they didn't get the performance that they wanted or expected. So what did they do? They call up support. Well, support is being support. And what does support do? They hand it back to the project team. The project team again looks at the VDI and says, well, we don't know. Everything works on my machine. And there you have it. Everything works on my machine. Now, how many project teams have you seen that use older thin clients? Not much. In my experience, all these project teams use state-of-the-art laptops. And so I have a conversation that is completely summarized by this. We have GPUs in our VDI. Why isn't it performing like a beast? Well, have you thought about the endpoints? And the answer is probably no. So before we move on, we would like to really thank the thin client specialists in the Netherlands and IGEL. Prior to this research, they delivered 2 huge boxes full of thin clients to my doorstep. My wife still is pissed about that, by the way. And from that big bunch of thin clients, we made a selection for you guys to test. Ryan's going to put it on the screen here. Yep, there you go. For instance, on the left side of the screen, we got the 2 IGEL UD3s. We got a new one and we got the older one. And way at the back, we got a very old Dell Wise thin client. But there's one that particularly stands out, and that is the second to last one. And that's one you won't typically find underneath a desk in a typical office. Ryan, why is that?
Because it's my personal machine. It's actually located right here. It's my game PC.
And as you can see from the price, it's a factor 3 more expensive than the other machine. So I hope for his sake that this one will outperform everything else. So let's move on to the scenario. What we did for you guys is we took a Azure machine. In this case, we took a NV6 machine, NV6 Promo. Why do we take the NV6 Promo, you ask? Well, very good. We do because we are Dutch and we're cheapskates, and the Promo version is cheaper than the other ones. I think it's completely the same otherwise. It's a pretty beefy machine. It's got 6 vCPUs, it's got 65 gigabytes of memory. Just like the other tests, we used Windows 10 1909, Office 2016, and we used the latest LTSR version of the VDA 1912. One thing you do have to keep in mind is that in this scenario, we used single user tests. So we're only using one user, and we are running a custom workload. Keep that in mind. We also set some different Citrix policies. The most noteworthy on that part is the target frame rate. Default, the target frame rate is 6 to 30 FPS, and we really up the antes, and we put it all the way up to the maximum 60 FPS. So, what we're gonna do? Just like Ryan said, we are going to show you some videos next, and for that we use some dedicated hardware to record the user experience. So that you guys can see what an end user will see and experience what an end user will experience. The videos are split around the screen. In the upper left is in dark blue is the newest IGL thin client, and in the middle row, for instance, is the upper right is the older WISE thin client. You'll also notice that there's also a QR code on your screen. And that's not malicious. That is by default. We did that because the GoToWebinar isn't really suited to show you guys videos. So what we did behind that QR code is a link to the YouTube video. So you can look at the videos along with us. So I'll give it a couple of seconds for you to take out your phone, scan the QR code, and get everything set up. I have a nice sip of beer.
There we go.
There we go. That was quick. It was a quick sip, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, the first workload that we got is, and play the video, please, Ryan. The first workload that we got is a very typical workload. It's a very light workload. It's just data entry in Word, just people typing. There's not much going on the screen. It's, as I said, very light, just some typing. The biggest part of the screen is static, doesn't change. It's actually as boring as hell. It's as boring as watching grass grow or paint dry. And if you've ever done that, it's very boring. If we look at the data, though, we can actually again see that this is a very light workload. CPU usage doesn't come above 10–12% in this. And as we saw on the video, all the thin clients, even the older WISE thin client, had no problem whatsoever processing this workload. And if you look at the GPU utilization again, as I explained, it's a very light workload, and even GPU usage is way, way, way low. Same goes for the frames per second. The biggest part of the screen isn't changing, so there's not much screen updates, so there doesn't have to be a lot of frames sent over to the client. To get things a little bit more interesting, if we skip to the next workload, which features a PowerPoint presentation.
So in this case, what we have done is we have selected an older presentation of ours and basically did the same on the same clients. And right from the start, you already notice a difference. I'm not really sure if it's really visible within the GoToWebinar, but the older Dell client is really lagging behind. And so there's a big difference in the user experience, especially in the upcoming slide where we have a nice animation regarding GO-EUC. It's really, really struggling with the animation. So when we look at the data, we still can see that the machine is a lot of resources and it's just a single user on the machine. So it's an easy task for the NV6 machine. And that's also for the GPU, right? As the PowerPoint can leverage GPU and also leveraging more GPU compared to Word, we see a little bit of an increase in the GPU utilization, but still there's a lot of room left for the GPU at least to be utilized. But if we look at the frames per second, there's really a thing that stood out. As we have seen from the video, the dark blue one, which is the older Dell-wise D7, was not showing the same experience compared to the other thin clients. But when we look at the data and the frames per second, we can see it's similar. So although the experience is very, very bad, it was still able to send off all the frames towards the endpoint, but in a slower pace. So that was for us really an eye-opener and a misperception when you only look at the data. And therefore, it's really important to also look at the output, what our user is experiencing. So let's go to the next one. A little bit of time for the QR code. You can scan it. So in this case, we selected just four machines, and we took the best performing machines, and the in this case not so good performing Dell machine. We also included that one. And here we showing the car visualizer, which has a nice rotation, including sound. Now, I'm not sure if the sound is really coming over, but when you at least look at the YouTube video, you will hear the sound stutter. As the clients, and in this case, it's the older UD3 client from iGel and the Dell machine, they cannot handle the audio stream as well. So we have a choppy experience as a user. So when we go to the data, again, we're using a single user on a big machine, so there is plenty of resources available for the workload to consume. And that was also really the point of this research, because the bottlenecks are in this case the endpoints. Looking at the GPU utilization, you can clearly see that there's starting to be a difference between the good performing machines and the less performing machines. And in this case, the less performing machines is the older UD3 client from iGel and the Dell machine. And when you convert this towards percentage, although the experience is very bad, you still see that the GPU is utilized by all the clients. But in this case, because the Dell-wise is really lagging behind, you will see that the utilization of the GPU is less compared to the other scenarios. And it also applies to Framebuffer. So it doesn't fully utilize the Framebuffer as the experience for the older machines are not that great. So this is the interesting part, and here we can at least see the difference, luckily. So as you can see, over time, we have a great experience for the, luckily my game PC, thank God. But also the upcoming, or in this case, it's already the new, because it's released, the new UD3 client. And so you have the nice utilization. It's a little bit below the 60 FPS, the cap that we set. But when you're looking at the older UD3 and the Wise, in this case, the amount of frames is really low. And when you're moving this towards a percentage, it's more than 50% difference when you are looking at the Dell machine, so the less worst performing machine. We want to take this, Eltjo?
Yeah, I'll take this. Up to the last one. And I see at the timer that I'm running a little bit late, so I might talk a little bit faster again than usual. For this last part, we took a video that everyone knows and loves, the Big Buck Bunny, which is a 60 FPS HD video. And if we play the video right from the start, we can see in the bottom right that the Dell Wise client is really struggling. Just in the part of the introduction, where there's not much animation, we can really see that it's, again, from the get-go, starting to fall behind. All of the other thin clients are performing pretty well, especially Ryan's thin client and the iGel UD3.
Are you calling my PC thin client, Eltjo?
I might as well. Yeah, I might as well. And one other interesting thing that we can see here. This is part of the video what we cut, and in this part, all the other free thin clients are already done with the video, but the Dell-wise is still struggling, still trying to catch up. And I don't think you can hear it because I didn't hear any sound in the video, Ryan. But if you play the sound, the video on YouTube, you can hear that at the last part, when the video is done, the Dell-wise client and the resources are freed up. It tries to put, I think, the last 1.5 minutes of sound into 5 seconds. It's very funny stuff. If we look at the data, we can see that this is much heavier on the machine. We are using a GPU to take that into account, but the CPU utilization is much higher than the previous workloads we are running. Talking about GPU, if you look at the GPU utilization, we can really see that a 60 FPS Full HD video is something that a VM with a GPU even, I wouldn't say struggle, but it's hard on the GPU. Just look at the spikes. There are spikes from almost 60% of GPU usage in this part. And bear in mind that we're using one user only, and it's taken up 60% of the GPU at times. If we look at GPU utilization in the bar chart, we can see that they're common ground, not much. We only see that the Dell-wise is lagging behind 2%, but not that much. If you look at the Framebuffer, something interesting is happening. If you look at the dark blue line from 10, what is it, minutes? Yeah, 10 minutes on, you can see that while the other thin clients are going down in the GPU Framebuffer, the wise one is still using quite a lot of Framebuffer. And why is that? Well, that's exactly the reason that we saw. Once the other three thin clients are ready, I'm going to take a small sip of beer for my
important
voice.
priorities.
Yeah. Because the other three thin clients are already done, the wise thin client was still playing the video, so it's still using the Framebuffer. Weird, eh? Okay, next one. And we can also see that again in the bar chart because there's a huge boost in Framebuffer usage for the Dell-wise guide. If we look at the FPS, we can clearly see that both the IGO UD3, the new one, and Ryan's game PC can smoothly deliver the 60 FPS as we said as the maximum frame rate that was available. Both have no problem reaching that. The other thin clients, though, they struggle, especially the Dell-wise. Yeah, because it can only deliver 74% of the frames, and that is really low. That is not an experience you want your users to have. So if we summarize that, an endpoint, just as we showed you, can make or break the user experience, but it's not for all workloads. So you have to really understand your workload. If you're just delivering light workloads like the task worker workload, where there's mostly data entry, all thin clients can cope without a problem. And if you are using a GPU in your VDIs, please make sure that your thin clients can handle it and can decode it. Because why would you invest in a GPU if your endpoints can't handle it? Take that into account. Yep.
So let's go to the key takeaways. So we have learned today that applying the right optimizations can save money. And as we Dutch, we really like saving money, especially when leveraging the cloud. So in our particular framework,
save money and buy more beer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in our particular case, we have seen that in the D series, the D4 V2 is the sweet spot, although you have to take account with the skill up, skill out, and especially with draining the users that we've learned from Jim. But the biggest important factor what we have learned today is understand the workload and use the correct endpoint, as the endpoint, as we have shown, can make or break your user experience. So when doing a VDI project, especially adding GPUs, make sure you also include the budget for your endpoints in there. But I think the most important thing, is without data, you're just another person with opinion. Make sure you test and validate the scenarios always yourself, and you have at least collect the data to prove it.
Yeah. And as history taught us, all good stories always should end with a moral. And on that point, you should always check everything, even us. Remember when I told you in the intro that I was 1.5 years younger than Ryan? Well, that is a blatant lie. I am actually 10 years older than he is. And on that
you can see it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on that bombshell, guys, thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the other sessions, and I hope to see you guys at the next E2E VC. And if you're looking for us, look for us at the bar, because that's probably where we are. Cheers. Take care.
Cheers, guys.